Season 1, Episode 9, Rogue. So as the series goes on, we're getting a fuller and more complete picture of the difference between, like, Metropolis and Smallville. That dichotomy just keeps coming up between them. Clark Kent and Lex Luthor, you know, the Kents and the Luthors, Smallville and Metropolis. But if you at any point think that Metropolis is like the land of the fancy civilization where the rich people live in their ivory tower, and Smallville is the hick town full of, like, real people, that's actually not the picture that we're being shown. It's actually the Kents who live in an ivory tower out in Smallville who don't really understand the real world. And it's people like the Luthors or Phelan, they're like cowboys from the Wild West or something. Like, Metropolis is like Gotham City. It's lawless and it's chaotic and it's every man for himself and it's cutthroat, and that's the kind of men that are coming out of Metropolis. And the Kents don't know how to handle that kind of stuff at all. They're used to slow, quiet, easy, low-risk living. Phelan is hilarious. I think he's my favorite guest star character so far. Extroverts are so underrated. Okay, so he's like this rogue cop who's fed up with all the bureaucracy and has effectively been working as some kind of a mercenary even from within the police department. And he finds Clark, the superhuman, and what he goes straight to is, "Finally, vengeance against internal affairs will be mine! We're gonna tear HR apart! They'll never force me to attend another anger management seminar again!" Anyways, so what's significant to me about this episode is that this is the episode, Season 1, Episode 9, where Clark should have told Lex his secret. It should have happened in this episode. Lex already clearly, strongly suspects most of it, and it should be obvious to anyone that's not an idiot Clark that it's only a matter of time before he figures all of it out anyways. And frankly, Lex would have helped him in this episode even without being told everything. Clark could have just told him, yeah, Phelan's got something on me, I can't explain it. But, like, Clark wasn't even able to tell him that much. He wouldn't even tell him that much. See, Clark and Jonathan, and I will just say Clark is getting this from Jonathan, they keep trying to just persevere in this one singular plan where they delusionally think they have complete control. And that plan is just lay low, just hide. Clark remains a total secret, even though this one plan is totally untenable. It's like Phelan says later in the episode, "You never enter a crack house with one plan, you go in with 10. That's how you survive." Jonathan and Clark have only one plan: lay low and hope for the best. They have no plan for what Clark should do with his superhuman abilities, just like as a life, what he should do with his life. And they have no plan for how to handle it when the secret inevitably gets out. It's like the entire life they have planned out for Clark is all about him hiding in a cave. And that's all they've got for him. So, like, Clark saves this homeless guy and the dog. And Jonathan, when his parents find out, Jonathan is, like, struggling to show any amount of approval. Like, he's fighting against his impulse to say, "That was so stupid. What if, what the first thing he says to him is, what if someone had seen you?" Like, he's implying that he thinks Clark took an unnecessary risk and he should have just stayed out of it and let the guy die. That's nuts. I mean, like, his fear of Clark being revealed is out of control. And he's pushing that, then Clark is inheriting this. Jonathan meets Phelan at the beanery later, right? And he almost loses his mind, which is underlining the fact that Jonathan is out of his league with these Metropolis guys. You guys ever seen the original movie, The Magnificent Seven, with Yul Brynner? The Kents and, like, people in Smallville, they're like the farmers who can get persecuted by outside forces that are stronger than they are, and they need help from the cowboys to teach them how to fight. The Luthors are like the cowboys, okay? They're like the people who know how to handle the stuff. They're from Metropolis, They're not evil themselves, but they've been around the evil. They know how to handle it. They know how to fight. The difference is that in the Magnificent Seven, the farmers weren't too proud to ask for help, but the Kents want to pretend like they're tough, and they just want to be rude to the cowboys instead. And just say, "You're all the same stuff, I don't need any help from you." Jonathan's used to being the strongest one around. He lives in a small world, and in his small world, he's the big dog. He's used to being able to just, reason with people and rely on their kindness. And if that doesn't work, well, maybe use your fists every so often, and that will work, because you're strong, right? That's child's play for people like Phelan and the Luthors. Jonathan can't manipulate or intimidate the Metropolis guys. And he doesn't know how to think outside the little box he's created for himself where he feels safe. So like for example, he's listening to Phelan's threatening, and Phelan he's playing mind games. He's manipulating Jonathan. Like Jonathan acts like, when he's talking to Clark, like Phelan just wanted you to think that you had no options. He's just messing with your head. And then Phelan does the same thing to Jonathan, and Jonathan falls for it. So like Phelan's threatening and saying like, hey man, if you don't do what I want, we're gonna get Clark and we're gonna put him on, I'm gonna tell everybody, we're gonna put him under a microscope, and worst case scenario, he's gonna be a freak in a jar. And like Jonathan just completely snaps. But you know what Lex Luthor might have done in that situation if they'd trusted the Luthors instead? Somebody who's not afraid to think outside the box. Honestly, Phelan's threat was totally baseless. Freak in a jar, like, yeah, if you can catch Clark is superhuman, okay? Like, he could crunch Phelan if he wanted to. Phelan's not the one who's holding all the cards. Jonathan is. Clark is. But Jonathan can't imagine any plan outside of the one he settled on years ago. Just hide. That's his plan, is just hide. So this baseless threat from Phelan works on Jonathan because of his fear. So this plan to just stay hidden is clearly unraveling, clearly untenable. And even at the end of the episode, after Phelan's dead, Jonathan himself says something about how, hey, well, there's always going to be more Phelans out there. So he knows it's not really over. So if you know that this plan won't work, you can't keep it a secret forever, what's the next step? You start revealing the secret strategically to people who you know can be allies, can be trusted, can be counted on. Clark definitely does not do this. He reveals his secret based purely on his feelings. It has nothing to do with rational prudential judgment. It'll be like, oh, I'm sexually attracted to this girl, so I'm going to tell her my secret. Or, oh, it's just too hard to have Pete mad at me. By the way, I don't give a crap if Lex is mad at me because he's not really my friend. Pete is. So I'm going to tell Pete. Or, I know this person won't treat me like a freak because they're a freak too, so I'm going to tell them. All of this is purely emotional garbage, okay? It has nothing to do with smart, rational, prudential judgments. So what would be a prudential judgment in this case? They're clearly demonstrating in the show this split between Hicktown Smallville and the Metropolis Cowboys. So who do we know who does know how to handle these people? Who does know how these people from Metropolis think and how to deal with them? Lex! Lex doesn't miss a beat with Phelan. So there's that scene where Phelan drops a generator on Clark, and Clark asks Phelan, how the heck did you know my name? And Phelan says he asked around. And he's like, that's the beauty of a small town. Everyone's just so eager to help. Far cry from Metropolis. Guess who wasn't eager to help and put up walls immediately between Phelan and Clark? Lex did. He didn't miss a beat. He didn't hesitate. They showed us this earlier. This is like the last interaction. It's funny because it's like Phelan shows up and knows Clark's name and is like, oh, everyone's so willing to help. But the truth is, Phelan went to Lex first and Lex wasn't willing to help. Again, underlining that difference that Lex knows what he's dealing with and the other people in Smallville have no clue how to handle Phelan. When Phelan confronted Lex covered for Clark immediately. Didn't miss a beat, didn't hesitate, wasn't thrown off at all. He is the perfect person to handle this situation. He's from Metropolis, he knows Metropolis men, he knows Phelan personally. Clark should trust him. So Clark tells his parents, in the episode about Phelan, and Martha's like, well, maybe we should call the police. And Clark's like, he is the police, I saw his badge. Gee, who do we know who has influence among the police department? So Lex comes out to see Clark at the barn and to warn him about Phelan, because Phelan went to him first. He found out about it first. And he tells him Phelan came to see him about this traffic accident. And he's like, well, the Metropolis police usually don't send detectives to investigate traffic accidents, so I think this is very strange. So Lex is already suspicious that Clark is some kind of a meteor freak. And now he knows Clark has been involved in 2 different mysterious traffic accidents where nobody died, but the vehicle was completely totaled. And the second one was weird enough to catch the Metropolis PD's attention. For Clark to just pretend like I can somehow keep this a secret from Lex is stupid. It's moronic. But he just goes, he just refuses to share what happened and just acts like it's nothing. He just wanted to talk. And Lex is like, well, then I guess you've got nothing to worry about. Man, do I relate to that. I've been in situations like that where I was warning somebody and they just return with just a transparent lie. And it's like, okay, all right, you're not going to trust me. That's fine. But, well, then I guess I will just drop this warning and assure you then you got nothing to worry about then. If this doesn't apply to you, then you don't have anything to worry about. That's great. Great to hear that what I suspect is going on is you insist that's not what's going on. That's good. I'm glad to hear that because then I guess that means you're totally safe and you won't need any help, even though both of us know they will. But this lie, it's just such a stupid lie to tell Lex. Like he really thinks he's going to be able to continue to keep this a secret. But what that means is this tells me either Clark is genuinely a moron or he's not a moron and his refusing to share these things with Lex has nothing to do with keeping it a secret. It's because he just plain old hates Lex and he doesn't want to share this with him. He doesn't want to get help from a Luthor. He still holds him in contempt. So anyone trying to claim that like Clark is a friend to Lex or sees him like a friend, remember, don't listen to him. Watch him. Watch what he does, and you'll see whether or not he actually sees Lex as a friend. So Phelan implies a threat to Clark's parents and strong arms him into helping. And I'm like, at this point in the show, I'm like practically screaming at my screen, "Call Lex, you idiot!" Dude's like, Lex would be on that guy like stink on a boot. He'd drop everything to help Clark, and we all know it, and he'd be good at it. And if he and Clark worked together, they'd be unstoppable. There's not a single bad guy in Metropolis that would be able to get advantage of those two if they were actually working together. So Lex catches Clark after Jonathan gets arrested and again tries to offer to help, guessing correctly that it's Phelan that's causing the problem. Clark is extremely hostile to Lex, ostensibly for no good reason. The, contempt that is in Clark's voice when he says to Lex, yeah, he told me you have secrets. Clark has secrets. Clark is keeping the biggest secrets of all. The hypocrisy from the Kents in their contempt for the Luthors is just maddening. It's disgusting. Drives me crazy. Everything Lex is saying is correct. He doesn't deserve to be treated like this. And you gotta ask yourself, why is Clark so contemptuous? Why are they so, why is he and his father, they're so contemptuous of the Luthors? And I think, I don't know, we figured out what's going on with Jonathan. He's got a massive inferiority complex when he's around Lionel. And he's been putting that onto Lex. Is the same thing happening with Clark and Lex? Does he feel inferior? Is that what's going on? So he just hates Lex because Lex makes him feel small? Even without trying, Lex is doing everything he can to try and build Clark up and help him, right? And give him good advice and help him to be a strong person and use his gifts and build his confidence. Like Lex is doing all that for him, but for some reason Clark freaking hates him. Maybe that's all it is. He just being around Lex makes him feel small and he doesn't like that. So he hates Lex. The thought of getting help from Lex is just unbearable for him.